Hey guys, Kevin, and today I'm going to be giving you some initial reactions on the Evolv Reflex. Okay, now I'm not going to give it a full review because my computer's broken, and technically you can plug this into your computer and download Escribe and customize the experience of vaping with this. And I think it also gives you some performance analysis that you can kind of go through as well. I know there was a post that I saw online that was talking about how you can figure out how much nicotine you actually consumed as well. So that's kind of cool, right? And I definitely feel like I should be checking that out before I give it an in-depth grade or anything like that, all right? But also, the device is something completely new and different in terms of the technology that it uses, right? And I wanted to first off talk about how I got this, right? I saw a video on YouTube. There's a couple up there, right? But one that specifically spoke to me, Daniel from DJLSB Vapes. He went to Evolv and did these interviews. I'm not going to really watch the video. I'll put a card up, so you can see it, okay? But either way, the thing that really drew me to wanting to purchase one of these devices was the fact that Evolv claims that they're trying to solve the problem of the cigarette, right? And that holds a special place in my heart, especially with what has gone on for me this year. I have struggled and struggled and struggled to quit smoking over the past, I'd say I've been trying for about 10 years, right? But I never really had a reason other than I'm coughing or I'm waking up and I'm hacking up my lungs, or it stinks and in my car and my clothes stink and all of that, right? I ended up falling in love with and getting engaged to a woman that smokes. So that ended up ultimately getting rid of some of those concerns, right? Because, well, she smelled like an ashtray too, right? But those choices, when you're making them for yourself and when you are deciding that you're going to smoke because you're the only person that it harms, right? It's a lot easier to just say, well, I've heard so many people say this, right? It's like, well, fuck it, I'm going to die anyway. Don't want to be that old anyway, right? I think we all know it. I think anybody that smokes knows that we're shortening our lives every time we puff a cigarette, okay? But early in the year, we had a miscarriage. Liz and I had a miscarriage. And the baby wasn't very far along, but we were excited. And we told everybody that we were having a baby way earlier than we should have. As soon as we found out, couldn't keep the secret, anything like that. And the pandemic happened, and very shortly after, everything got shut down, including like the doctor's offices. We were in a situation where a miscarriage happened. And as a man, I never really understood what happens, like, physiologically. I mean, I guess we kind of know, but you see in the movies and on TV a miscarriage happening and somebody's just bleeding, they go to the doctor, and then cut scene to crying and being upset, just holding belly, right? I'm gonna keep a lot of the details to myself. It's because I get choked up even thinking about it, but it's a very private matter too. And I don't want to overshare, but even when a baby is the size of a pea, right? There's a gestational sac that's the size of a fist, right? And when you have a miscarriage, there's a birth that essentially happens, okay? And that happened, right? The baby wasn't viable and went on. Now, we didn't know why. Doctors at that early of a stage kind of say, well, it could be anything, really. I mean, it just means the baby wasn't viable. There's lots of people that have miscarriages, they don't talk about them and all that, right? But we got pregnant again, not very long after the miscarriage, okay? And waited 3 months. Everything seemed like it was going great. And one morning, Liz wakes up bleeding. And we went to the ER crying, just losing our minds, thinking that we're gonna lose another baby, right? And this time we did wait to tell everyone and wait, you know, just to make sure that we could be excited and all that, right? Turns out Liz had a complication called placenta previa. And that essentially means that the placenta, instead of migrating up in the womb, right, ends up staying low. And in this case, it was covering part of the cervix, and that was creating pressure and causing bleeding, okay? It is a serious complication, and she was put on bed rest, wasn't allowed to go up and downstairs for a very, very long time. I moved all of her stuff actually down here. I put her dresser right there and had all of her clothes in there. And she essentially was living on the couch because she didn't want to go upstairs. She didn't want to live upstairs. There wasn't enough cool stuff down there, right? And no refrigerator and all that, right? But we got through that, and our son is ready to be born. Last week, when we had an ultrasound, he was over 7 pounds, and she's ready for him to get the hell out, right? But it was when we went into the hospital and learned about placenta previa that I quit smoking, right? And when I say that I quit smoking, that's the thing. I did, right? Liz continued smoking. Her doctor told her not to quit, to cut down. And she did. Okay, so she did cut down. And doctor also told her not to vape. And I can get so far into that, and we could have a political debate when it comes to that as well, right? But I'm going to avoid that. So all these devices that I buy, you know, Coco, all of this. I mean, got the Argus, everything, right? I mean, I'm buying them because I'm trying to find that perfect device, and I'm trying to essentially like figure out how I can quit smoking, but they're also for her. All right, she struggles more than I do, and realistically, like, she's trying to vape now and has quit smoking. All right, but who knows how it's gonna go? Okay, she hasn't found the right like blend, the right mix, the right device. All right. So that's where I was hoping that this device would come in, all right, the Evolv Reflex. And I was actually given this by Brandon of Evolv. To tell you a little bit about Evolv, right? Evolv is responsible for the innovations of like temperature control, variable wattage. They're known for their high-end vape mods and like the chipsets in those mods, called the DNA series, right? I think the most current ones are like the DNA 250. They also have the DNA Go, which is in a couple of different pod devices. And essentially what they did is they set these things up to try and solve the cigarette, come up with the perfect device for an ex-smoker. And now I'm going to vape on it, and I'm going to try and explain a little bit about that, right? So just to show you the device, it's really no fuss, okay? You got your pod, and if you look inside the pod, you'll see it looks kind of like an older sort of throwback to the way that atomizers were wicking. There's some cotton that's just kind of hanging out, almost like you would see with a redrippable or like an RTA, right? Where the cotton's sort of fluffed out outside, like into the juice, wicking it up, okay? Then you got your actual battery, right? When you place the device, there are 2 buttons that you have to press here, okay, to take the pod out, right? And then when you place this in here, right, you're gonna notice that it's flashing. What that's doing is it's priming the coil to be fired on, right? Okay. Now, with that said, you can see some of this little stuff that's on here, right? That's juice. Let me explain. Evolv tells you to expect that you're going to have some excess juice when you use this device, all right? And what they tell you should do is every time you refill the pod, okay, you're gonna come in here and you're gonna wipe the juice, like any excess juice that you have off from these little channels that are in here, okay? And do your best, try and get as much as you can, all right? And then you're also gonna wipe the inside of this battery. There's no juice recycling that goes on with these pods. So essentially what you're doing is you're vaping the juice, and anything that doesn't kind of fire out is just gonna end up falling out and going into out through the bottom of the pod into the device, right? And will need to be cleaned. All right. I mean, it's simple enough. It's not like it makes a giant mess or anything like that. I've had no leaks in my pockets for it, but I am aware that that's there. Sorry guys, I had to restart this. But so to show you, there's 3 different power settings for the device. If you press the button and you hold it for 3 seconds, it'll cycle through them. The first is gonna be your blue, which is supposed to be like an ultralight cigarette. Now, when I draw on this device, it is the most cigarette-like device I've ever had, all right? When you draw on it, you can increase the pressure and therefore increase the heat of the coil, right? So it's responding to my draw. It's sensing how hard I'm drawing, and it's increasing the power to the coil in essentially the attempt to emulate like a burning cigarette. Fantastic, okay? And that seems like it should be a technology that could be on any pod device, right? But Evolv's the only one doing it, right? So here we go. Little light draw, very little vapor. See? Awesome. I'm gonna hold it and go to the next power setting, green. Green is going to be like a light cigarette. Little draw, little vapor. Big draw, big vapor. And then my favorite, which is full flavor. It's orange light. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think Daniel is the one that put it the best in his interviews when he was trying this for the first time. And he said it's almost nostalgic, right? And I think he totally nailed it. It's nostalgic in terms that it feels like a cigarette, but it also feels and reminds me of like earlier kind of like cig-like devices that were out there, like even the egos and stuff like that. Okay, so again, just showing you. Comparison to cocoa. When I draw on the cocoa, right, it's one solid draw. It's on or it's off, right? On, off, on, I mean, there's really no comparison. This is the closest thing to a cigarette that's out there, all right? Which brings me to some of the other things about it, okay? I've got 3 pods. Brandon sent me 2 additional pods. And in these pods, I've got, actually I have to tell you, right? But in one of the pods, I've got just a freebase fruity juice. Okay, prime it up. I'll tell you which one this is in a second. This is my freebase fruity juice. And when I draw this, okay, it doesn't taste very good. I mean, in terms of like flavor, it's beat out by most devices, okay? I mean, that's the big drawback to this, right? And then I'm gonna take now my Nic salt. And it's a fruity Nic salt. Let it prime up. Much more intense throat hit, okay? As it should be, okay? As it should be, right? With Nic salts, we're used to being able to vape things like a 50 milligram Nic salt, and it goes into our lungs, and the benzoic acid in it ends up making it a little bit easier to draw on, right? It's not the case with this. These Nic salts are harsh. They give a very harsh throat hit. You can't vape. Like, I think this is a 50 milligram. Well, maybe you can, but I'm gonna say don't, right? And again, the flavor is just not very good, right? Let's move on to what I've got in here. And this is a blend between a 12 milligram tobacco flavor and a 0 milligram tobacco flavor. I blended it to be about 9 milligrams, all right, of juice. And it is just straight up the best tobacco vape that I've had, the tobacco vaping experience that I've had, because you get the heat of the draw, there's just something about the way that it wicks. Now my cat's like freaking out, but there's just something about the way that this wicks up the tobacco flavor, and it makes it more palatable for me. And that's also a bit of the dangerous thing about it, right? Really, really reminds me of a cigarette. I've been vaping this thing exclusively with the tobacco juice in it, okay? Now, a little bit about the device itself, okay? You've got a 2 milliliter capacity in the pods, and you have, I think it's a 700, yes, a 750 milliamp hour battery, all right? And the battery lasts a long time. It hasn't died on me. And that's because of the efficiency when it comes to using the device, right? If I'm drawing on it a little bit, it's not sending all of the voltage and all the power to it, right? And essentially it creates a bit of like an arc or a curve, right? And a lot of the DNA chipsets are like that, right? They're known for the fact that they're very efficient in terms of battery life, okay? But with this specifically, it follows your airflow, right? And it's just amazing in that regard, right? So Kevin, what do you ultimately think about this device? This device brings up a lot of things that I don't necessarily always want to think about, okay? When it comes to, first off, the reason I quit smoking, all right? And second, about what we're actually putting into our lungs with this stuff. In the interview with Evolv and on their site, or and on Evolv's site, they mention the fact that this device is held to like the strictest and beyond the strictest standards in terms of making sure that the only stuff that's coming into our lungs from it, right, is stuff that we put in it, the juice itself, right? And I'm gonna show you this. Now, I haven't been saving this for a long time or anything like that, right? And on camera, it actually doesn't look as bad as it does realistically, but this morning and from today, just now wiping this device clean, right? See, there's a lot of dirt, dirty, shitty, junky stuff, okay? And the Cocoa Prime, that's going in our lungs, right? In this, it's being filtered out. So I think that that's ultimately why the flavor in this doesn't necessarily produce as well. Okay. Also, in terms of like the actual nicotine that goes into you on this, you can get a nicotine buzz off of this extremely easily. Extremely easily. It's so much more like a cigarette that I've been going from a 50 milligram juice to 9 milligrams, and it has been completely enough to deal with any kind of nicotine cravings that I'm having, right? It's a device that I can't put down, despite the fact that it's maybe a little messier than my Cocoa Prime. It's definitely like not as big of a flavor producer as, you know, many of the newest like mesh pod systems and stuff like that. And I was trying to kind of figure out and ask myself, can I really not put it down because it's satisfying, or is it because it's just a shiny new, ultimately $120 device? It's $80 if you are over 40. Okay. And the answer is, it's just that satisfying for me in terms of nic replacement. I mean, this is the device that you should give every new smoker, or every smoker that you want to try and quit smoking. Okay. My dog, or no, that's my cat that knocked something down. And I'm going to buy one for my dad, right? And Liz, once she's no longer pregnant, is going to be sharing this with me. I say sharing because I don't know that I want to just necessarily give it up yet. And I'll probably end up buying another one too. But so should you buy this? It really depends. If you're looking to quit smoking, yes, buy this device. Period. Right? If you're a vapor and you enjoy vaping, it's not going to give you much, right? Nicole on my channel has been feeling like she wants to quit vaping. Buy this device. Buy this device. And it's really pretty much as simple as that. Like with every other device, I'm going to give it coil updates and, you know, device checks and things like that. So this isn't the last you're going to see of the Evolv Reflex, but also Brandon said I didn't have to do a review or anything like that, and I'm not even necessarily sure that he's gonna like the review when I say that, well, this thing doesn't taste as good as other pod systems and stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, it's the best tobacco flavored vape that I've had, right? And it's the best cigarette like device that I've ever tried, and it's keeping me from picking up cigarettes when I am stressed out of my mind with this baby coming and at the end of my semester, and I've got a broken computer and all of that. I haven't even thought of going out and buying a pack of cigarettes. It's just not there. I've had this thing, right? And I do have other great devices too. So like, if I'm in the mood to just enjoy this and fix mate, first one I grabbed, I can do that, but I don't have to freaking sit chain vaping this thing. And I certainly am not chain vaping this. It's satisfying me, right? So now this became a really, really long video. And I know that like the way that I do these videos, I don't necessarily have a plan. I'm just sort of discussing and talking about my likes and my dislikes. So thank you for sitting through it. There was one concern that Brandon had just about this in his video, and also in the interview that he was discussing, and that's the way that you fill it. You've got to take off 2 of these little rubber stoppers, right? And I have butterfingers and I haven't dropped them or anything like that, but it might also be because like I'm aware, right? And then you fill this thing up. You don't fill it all the way up. Fill it up to here. And it actually tells you in the instructions where to fill it up to. But like right along there. Give it some space, okay? And then you put these little rubber stoppers back in. And you gotta make sure that the arrows are facing towards the inside of the device. I actually don't find this as a problem. You know, maybe if I'm trying to refill this thing in the car or something like that, that could be an issue. Or just out on the go when I'm in the middle of doing stuff. It's not as simple as, okay, click, pop, right? But with that said, I'm not going through much juice with it either. So, I mean, I'm maybe doing a fill up every day. So I'm going through maybe 2 tanks of this a day. But that's really not that bad. So with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the, just my thoughts and my reactions. I know a lot of people just online, like in discussion forums and you know, in my comments threads and in the comments threads for Evolv as well. They have a forum, like on their site that you can go on and check it out. There's been a lot of interest in it, and not enough people have really kind of gotten the device and talked about it. So, you know, if you're on the fence about buying it, I'm definitely going to recommend that you buy it. If you are having a tough time quitting smoking, if you're missing cigarettes, if you know somebody that wants to quit smoking, okay, definitely buy it. If you want to quit vaping, this might be the device for you too. Like, limit your nicotine intake and all that as well. If you enjoy vaping and you're looking for the best performing, awesome vape device with the best clouds and things like that, take a pass. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks.